There are a great many ways to say yes to something. Think about all the ways that you can, will, and have said yes. There's the marriage proposal, or the moment when that dream person asks you to prom. Yes, yes, yes. This one is confident and excited, filled with anticipation and hope for what saying yes means for your future. Then there's the, can you take out the trash? Yeah. This is a reluctant yes that may or may not be willingly given, and at least is not worthy of any excitement about what you're saying yes to. Finally, there's the teachers. Did you understand all the directions I just listed and can repeat them back to me line by line? Yes. None of us are too old to not be able to remember a teacher asking us a question like this, and the blank stare on our face when we responded yes to this question. All the while having no idea what the teacher actually said or how we were going to figure that out without being discovered. Have you understood all this? Jesus asks his disciples after laying out 5 different metaphors symbolizing the kingdom of heaven: a mustard seed, yeast, treasure, a merchant in search of fine pearls, and a net full of fish. These 5 images are presented as being illustrative of what God's kingdom will look like. And armed with those 5 images, the disciples are asked whether or not they can go out and paint this picture of the kingdom of heaven for others. Yes. They answer simply with that one word, and Jesus apparently accepts that answer, and then we're told he casually continues along with his ministry by leaving that place. Yes? When do we ever hear about the disciples answering with a concise and positive answer to Jesus without getting rebuked? When do they ever get the memo on the first try without Jesus having to explain to them that they don't actually understand what he's trying to say? Well, apparently this is the day. This is the day when the disciples can sufficiently answer with one word a question that Jesus has posed. And because their answer is short, I know I have a bad habit of equating that with confidence. When I first read this text, I heard the confident and excited marriage proposal, yes, from the disciples. But I've begun to doubt how emphatic they actually were in answering Jesus. I invite you to come along with me as we take a deeper look at that yes. If they had given Jesus this confident yes, he wouldn't have accepted it in the immediate way that he did, and then graciously allowed them to fail over and over again. I don't hear a confident yes from these disciples because their actions over the next few chapters don't back up a solid understanding of a kingdom that Jesus has just presented. Our gospel today comes from chapter 13. In chapter 14, the disciples doubt that the loaves and fishes they've gathered would be enough to feed the 5,000, though they keep hearing about the abundance of God's kingdom. Later in the same chapter, when Peter sees Jesus walking on water, he tries to do the same and fails, doubting in the power of the kingdom. In chapter 16, Jesus tells the disciples what must happen in order for the kingdom of heaven to come to earth, and Peter tries to tell him he's wrong. In chapter 18, the disciples ask about who the greatest in the kingdom will be, though Jesus has all along been trying to show them that very thing. Need I go on? The disciples mess up over and over again. Though they try, they continually end up putting their own ideas of what the kingdom of heaven is before the clear example of the kingdom of selfless love that Jesus has presented them. And I believe Jesus is aware of this. And so he doesn't expect a confident yes from them in our story today. and he doesn't expect one from us as well. Do you ever hear something that Jesus says in the scriptures, or see an example of someone you know living out their call to follow Jesus? And you say, yes, that's how I'm going to live out my faith. We try and answer with a sure and confident yes, knowing what we must do to bring the kingdom to earth. Yes, Jesus, we've understood. We have to be sure there's a Bible in every home and hotel room, thank you, Gideons. We have to be sure that everyone at church serves on at least 2 different committees. We have to do apparently a great many things in order to bring the kingdom of heaven to earth. We answer confidently. And then, at least for me, I find out that in the sureness of my response, I've put my own ideas of the kingdom in front of God's. I've doubted, that the work of the kingdom can get done without me getting personally involved. We've vilified those who don't agree with our vision of the kingdom. And we've missed the point that Jesus was trying to make. But suppose the disciples answered this yes in a way more similar to the student who's been caught daydreaming by the teacher. And that student says yes, even though he has no idea what the teacher is actually expecting from him. Suppose these disciples were equally blank-faced and empty-headed when Jesus asked, "Have you understood all this?" And then, not trying to look foolish in front of their teacher, they say, even though they would show by their actions in chapter 14, 16, 18, and so on, that they might not have been as sure as they sounded. And Jesus still accepts that yes, even as unsure as it might have been. And when they fail to demonstrate to others what they do know about the kingdom, Jesus graciously shows and explains it to them again, over and over, continuing to teach them more about the kingdom and still entrusting them to show it to others, even allowing for their continued unsurety. We don't have to answer with a rock-solid yes when asked if our faith is in a good place right now, or when we're asked if we'll commit to do one more thing for the good of the church, or when we're asked if we understand what Jesus is trying to get at in a particular story. Jesus didn't expect his disciples to understand what the kingdom of heaven really looked like, even after explaining it in 5 different ways. And he certainly doesn't expect us to always know what we're committing to when we commit to follow as his disciple. God will take our uncertainty and our hesitation and our "I'm not sure what I'm saying yes for," and will send us out to do the kingdom's work anyways. And then we find out what that work is after we've already begun. The point of these parables is not to memorize 5 examples and to measure everything we do against them. The point of them is to show that God's kingdom is here. God's kingdom is active. God's kingdom actively involves our participation in it. The mustard seed growing, the yeast rising, the seeker of treasure and pearls, the net fishing, all of these have action and change and involvement that doesn't require a firm yes before engaging in the kingdom's work. It involves us listening to God, understanding as best we can, giving God that, okay, I think I know what I'm committing to, but really, actually have no idea, and then going forward anyways, and allowing space for God to work with you. And despite our uncertainties, no matter how hesitant our yes is, we can be sure that with God, the seed will grow, the yeast will rise, the net will be full of fish. We are all invited to be participants with God in the work towards this kingdom. In my accepting the call here to serve with you, I've said yes. I will let you decide how hesitantly, but I've said yes to finding and participating in that kingdom of heaven here with you. How you are all invited will look different, but God's kingdom raises the other above yourself. God's kingdom takes what is small in the world and makes it great. God's kingdom is exemplified by Christ's self-giving action on the cross. When you see examples of this kind of work in the world, get your hesitant yeses ready. Have you understood all of this?